time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Armor Radio. Josh here with Brooke Nabors.
Thank you for having me.
Brooke, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, yeah.
This is your first time on the podcast. You have been an athlete at Armor for how long?
Roughly about like a year and 3-ish months. I joined last March.
There's a lot of different places in Knoxville to work out. What is it that differentiates Armor from the rest?
The atmosphere. You immediately walk in and it's like, cool, we're here. Everyone's on their own game plan, like you versus you, but we all come together as a really cool community that pushes everyone, but it's not like a competition. It's like, okay, you're doing this and I want to do that.
Okay.
It's
that leads me to my next piece.
Yeah.
You're a competitor.
Correct.
Tell me what you have competed in so far.
So I started off as a gymnast and a swimmer. So I've always been in an individual sport. I've never been in a team setting, team for points wise, but I've always been a you versus you athlete.
Is that because you didn't want to have to depend on somebody else?
I have a very aggressive approach at things. So my mom just was like, it'd be kind of dangerous if you were in a contact sport. Didn't want to get a red card, so I don't know. I just always took out my emotion in the water and on the mat. So I found the gym when I was about maybe 18 coming into college, and I'd got mono my freshman year of college and lost my menstrual cycle, lost 20 pounds, full 180. And I was like, maybe I'll just start a bulk. I'll just gain weight. And started lifting and fell in love with it just based on overall progression, like the newbie gains. And I loved the way it made me feel mentally. I took out the physical aspect of it. It felt like a form of therapy, which was really a healthy form of therapy. It was cool.
It's hard to explain that to people who've never done it before.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
really
gosh. Yes, it is.
Now, let's go back. So you said gymnast. In my experience, every athlete I've ever coached for 22 years, if I captured a gymnast, they would lend themselves better to learning any new thing, fitness-wise, and often mental state-wise, than any other athlete. Would you say that you fit into that same realm?
I've never heard anyone else say that, but yeah, I can agree.
How long did you do gymnastics?
Gymnastics was more of like a prereq to swimming. So I did that for about 8-ish years up until 8th grade.
That's a big prereq.
Yeah. I did that for 8 years, but I had a little bit of a crossover with swimming and gymnastics all at once when I went through a growth spurt going into 8th grade. And then I was like, swimming's taking off. This is taking up 6 days of my week, 2 practices sometimes per day.
Swimming?
Yeah.
Well, usually you hear that about gymnastics.
Yeah.
Gymnastics is taking up 4 hours often, right?
Yeah, I was working out a lot in middle school, and it just came to the point where, okay, what do I want to focus on year round? And I also am 5'7", so I was a little
tall gymnast.
Tall to be a gymnast.
That's a tall gymnast.
So yeah, I just dove into the water and never got out.
Tall gymnast, but good for swimming.
Yeah.
What's the average height for a swimmer when it's female? I don't know the answer.
I would say 5'9" to 5'11".
Okay.
Taller.
I was gonna say.
I'm right in the middle.
Okay.
I'm right. Well, not in the middle of that, but I'm average.
I was gonna say short on that. I was okay. I'll ask just to make sure.
Short.
Okay.
But I gained a lot of length in the water. That was one thing. Every time I did, I was a flyer, so I did butterfly. I did IM. And every time I did my streamlines, I was the last one to get out of the water because I used my compact height to my advantage.
Well, then power though. So would you agree then that when you got in the water, you were able to use what you already had developed in gymnastics 100%. For the water?
100%.
I would think that you would again be able to apply all of that to that sport way faster than somebody that comes in cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And then pick it up faster, and then be able to maybe use some of that to overcome. Height wouldn't be a deficiency, but I mean, you were a little bit shorter. Yeah. And in swimming, that's obviously gonna play a big role.
For sure. I wouldn't put myself on a pedestal with that. I think everyone's capable of doing that, but my experience kind of allowed me to do it easy.
What were your events in gymnastics? Were you all of them, or did you focus mainly on?
All of them. I didn't get extremely far into competitive gymnastics, just because that was more of a high school, okay, like you go on the travel meets.
Sure.
We did travel a little bit, but gymnastics really wasn't my main sport. I took a lot of the mentality from it, not necessarily like I can't do a back tuck anymore. Like I don't,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Well, most people can never do it ever.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
That's a big deal.
That's true.
But you said you took the mentality. So
yeah.
what sort of mentality did you develop that helps you out today?
There's so much I can say.
Is there something that you could tell me that I could use? Like I do this, or this is I get up every morning and I talk to myself in the mirror, like some form of practical thing that you still do today that you learned then?
I think, just going back to the term you versus you, what I keep saying, something that I'm guilty of is comparing myself to others, and it's like, oh, like they did this, they did that, and like you get a score.
Yeah,
oh,
totally.
9 out of 10, or oh, 8 out of 10, and it's like whoever is first place. So it's very much so you're putting everyone on a pedestal, a physical pedestal that you can see. And it was always like, oh, that girl beat me. And there was another girl, my name's Brooke Nabors, and there was a girl named Brooke Nabors. And we always swam against each other, but she was so good. She was so good. And it killed me because I was like, wow, she's just the other Brooke. Like, and I'm the other Brooke to her. But it's really, from my perspective, it was like, I was young, so it was like, I'm putting myself above her, like, oh, she's the other one.
Yeah.
But to her, I'm the other one.
Yeah.
We're all...
Did you have the wherewithal to think about that at that point in time, or have you had that in hindsight?
Hindsight, but during it, I was like, it's really not that big of a deal. Like she has other environmental factors that came into play. Like everyone is one of one, and being in an individual sport, that was the biggest thing that I took from that. Hence why this brought me to bodybuilding, because there's so many different divisions that you can go into. And you can compete in novice, true novice if it's your first time, masters, like anyone can do it.
Yeah, that's very
but
true.
It's all your own journey. That was one thing that my past coach really drilled into me. He was like, there's no rush. You don't
Past
have
coach
to.
is in swim or in
Past
gymnastics?
coach of my last bodybuilding coach.
Oh,
I
gotcha,
had a crossover. But yeah.
So it's kind of like blinders on, but so we can talk about that. But it interests me that you went from a very subjective sport to where when you did the things, and maybe you said you didn't compete as much, but the intention of that sport is to get to somewhere where somebody judges you, and they give you a score that you walk away with. Then you went to a sport that was on the clock, that is not subjective. It is what it is. And then you go back to a sport which your entire prep lays at the hands of a group of judges.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like the two harder ones are the two bookends are harder to stomach.
A little bit.
Because you can do all the work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily show up for you at the end of the day. In fact, we can speak to this. What my experience in bodybuilding and in that is, if you don't know people sometimes, I don't mean that in a very bad way.
You're right.
But if
You're
you're standing next to somebody else who's just done it more often.
Correct.
And they really are sort of confused, it's going to go to that person who's just 100%. Done it more often. So to me, that's a little bit hard to stomach as an athlete.
Yeah. When I competed, it was obviously my first show back in October of 2023. It was a smaller show over in chat, but the girl that I was up against for the overall, she had years of experience over me. Like, it was hands down, okay, like this girl's first overall.
Yeah.
And that also plays a part into if you are using enhancements, overall muscle maturity, your age, how much you train. Like, there wasn't an extra day of training that I could do to get above her. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's just self-acceptance.
Now, are you saying that because you walked in and you could see that?
I could see it.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
like
You
that
weren't
was
saying
not,
that because
I'm
you
not
knew
saying,
her role and
no,
thought
no,
it was
no.
wrong. Okay.
I'm not saying that to diminish my own accomplishments, but even if I added a month onto my prep, like she was already there. Her work was put in before I started. So
that's a great point. Let's go on that. How old are you?
I am 22 as of a couple weeks ago.
Okay, well, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
22. How old was that athlete? Do you know?
26.
So there's a few more years in there, and that does matter.
Yeah,
that
we
does
looked
matter.
completely different.
That
She
does
looked like
matter.
a wellness competitor, and I looked like a bikini competitor that was fitting into wellness.
We're going to talk about that, okay? So
Yeah.
now, when you're talking about that age-wise, I've done this for many, many years, when you've done it before, the body looks one way. Then you do it again, and the body, generally speaking, gets there easier, looks a different way, and then you keep adding that on when done correctly, and you keep looking better and better. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so she had that more of a polished look because she's done it before,
Yeah.
and this is, again, your very first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did that in 2023. And I saw you getting ready for that. You could very much tell she's getting ready for things. This is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Tell me what wellness is, tell me what bikini is, and tell me the different divisions and why you picked wellness.
So, wellness division is more of that bottom heavy, cap shoulders, hourglass, and you're kind of, it's a little bit more sassy, that
Okay,
that
that's a good way to put
attitude,
it.
I should say.
That's a good way to put it.
And I would follow all these girls and that were these athletes for these bodybuilding brands. And I was like, this is cool. The confidence that they hold is really cool. I want to do wellness. Like, I really like that. It looks like I would fit that. Cool. Then we take it over to bikini, which is more of that symmetrical, less definition, but more toned. I don't want to say petite look, but it's smaller than wellness.
Okay, so let me make sure I get this right. So you have, which one is leaner, or does that not go into the conversation?
Leaner is bikini. You want to be the most conditioned athlete on
Okay.
stage. And I'm also, like, again, I've only competed once, so there's obviously so many other things that I don't know about bodybuilding in general that others could say, but bikini is more of that smaller build,
Okay.
different, hamstring tie-ins and all the things. Not as big shoulders, but the training still looks the same.
So describe this to me if I'm out in the wild. I'm not a human that's here at Armor I've never seen competitions or stuff like that. You're not talking about just walking onto a beach and seeing a girl in a
No.
bikini. What a girl in a bikini show looks like, step up is not the right way to say that, but it has a very fit look to it.
Yeah, very fit and very, the way I would describe conditioned would just be defined, but not, I'm
Not
stepping
in
on
your
the
face.
stage for a bodybuilding show.
Got it.
More feminine.
Okay,
So not,
that's a good way to put it.
not as sassy, but more graceful.
So then the
Wellness is like, I'm getting up on there.
Okay. Got it.
No-
Is
not
there
putting-
is there a piece to that? Is there a piece to like the posing that accentuates that?
Correct.
Oh,
The way
okay.
that your hips are placed, the way that your foot placement is, depending on where you're angling yourself to the judges, and it's very precise.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
that
very
sounds
precise.
so. Okay, so the posing differs from bikini to wellness.
Correct, for all divisions as well.
We're saying the size of the athlete, generally speaking, changes in terms of how much muscle they carry versus
Correct.
bikini and wellness. So bikini would be technically, for females, that would be the lowest amount of muscle mass, but lowest amount of mass
Correct.
generally. Then you get to wellness. What's the next step?
In between, wellness is a fun combination of bikini and figure. Figure is more of that tapered V shape of having a bigger back.
More work muscularly, but
Yes.
more of the correct work to the specific standards that the judge is going to hit you for.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Figure also has in between the legs of wellness and bikini, so they're bigger but not as big as wellness, not bottom heavy. It's just you're tapered.
So, but you're talking about a specific sort of training, because you mentioned bottom heavy for wellness and then back dominant for figure. So their training probably is going to suit those needs.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Obviously, you need to have progressive overload. You're doing weight training, you're doing cardio. Your split may look different, and that looks different for if you put two wellness competitors or even two
100%.
bikini competitors next to each other. They're not going to have the same training split because it is a one-of-one personalized training split. My shoulders may be bigger than my best friend who's going to go compete in a couple months.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to, or I don't have to hit shoulders as much as she does. Or she has to hit legs less than I do because her legs are bigger than mine. It
Yeah,
just all
yeah, yeah,
depends on what you hold individually.
Okay. So now, is there a step above figure?
Figure, there's women's bodybuilding, there's also women's fitness. I'm not well versed in outside of those three, so I don't really have a lot of knowledge to speak on that, but all very amazing. I should call them performers, because it really is a performance up on stage.
For sure, and
So,
performance athlete, yeah, totally.
And then there's different classes that you can compete in within classes within divisions.
Explain to me how that works. Is that like novice?
Novice, true novice.
Okay.
True novice is first competitors. Novice is just amateur competitors.
That's like never won an event or never placed in an event? Is that how novice goes? And then true novice means it's really your first one?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And then there's also classes. It's very confusing. But
classes like how much you weigh?
How tall you are. And women, for women, we don't go by our weight.
Okay.
Which is really cool, actually, because 150 could look very different on someone who's 5'6",
for sure,
and someone who's 5'10".
For sure.
So I think it's more beneficial to not go by weight and only go by that height class.
You say that's a smart choice for the competition?
I would think so, because women hold weight very, very differently.
Yeah, for sure.
From one woman to the next, and also men too. But it depends on your height from class A, B, C, sometimes even D, depending on how many people are competing. And then there's the A class overall, B class overall, C class overall, and then the overall winner put from A, B, and C. So then you're going up against competitors that are at different heights, and but it's like who really fits what they're looking for.
So I know that generally speaking, when you walk out, you're walking out with your class. But when you do the overall, is it the class winners?
Yes.
That come out, and then you have that one overall winner?
Yes.
Okay. So now, tell me what your results were in that first competition.
So I stepped out on stage for True Novice. It was me and like one other woman, I think.
Okay.
And it was just us two. Ladies, turn to the right. Cool, great. Did our thing. And then we stepped out with, I'm like trying to lock myself back into like being in front of the lights again. But stepped out with novice with a couple other girls. I think that was 5 of us. And that's girls who also have competed before, but we may have competed. This may have been our first show, depending on whatever. And we all did our individual routines after this. There's also a morning show for prejudging, and then a final show at night.
Okay.
So it's an all-day event.
Yeah, it happens in the morning and the evening. You have a break in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's where you have to figure out, okay, did I look flat in the morning? Do I carb up? Do I eat fats? Do I do this? You look completely different from the morning to the night.
100%. So now what the guys will do, and I know because I did it for many years, competing, it was, when that happened, you had your prejudging. And then oftentimes, and maybe this has changed, the competition was over. If it was close, maybe the evening show made a difference.
Yeah.
So the majority of the time, the guys would go and everybody would go get something to eat, and then it would be absolutely horrible food. But most of the time, you came back looking really good because of you've been deprived. You had all the things. As long as you didn't spill over, like everything happened beneficially for most people.
Yeah.
Is that what you did, or is that what you see in your world?
That is not what I did. I've heard of competitors doing that.
Yep.
I've heard of competitors drinking red wine before they step on stage.
Supposedly something to do with vascularity.
Yeah, loading up with Krispy Kreme or something, sugars just to, blow up in a good way. But my coach was like, absolutely not. I have no clue how your body's going to react to foods that you haven't had. I was on a prep for 31 weeks, so I was on a regimented diet for about 7 months and stick to a lot of the same foods throughout. So he was like, I don't know how your body's going to react to that if I throw that on your meal plan the day of.
So that's a very smart coach.
Yeah. He pretty much just upped my amounts of things. I was eating like microwavable rice. It was it was a lot. But it was a great day.
Smart coach though, very smart.
So we kind of just took check-ins every hour, and it was, some can say objectifying, but it is really, it's a sport. A well-respected sport. Some people have other things to say, but at the end of the day, you got back up on stage again at 6 p.m. and it was like, cool, I'm here to go.
Yeah.
And it also plays a part into like your stage presence.
Sure.
How respectable you are to like other competitors too. Like they take note into everything. The color of your suit, the color of or the way that you did your hair, if it's curled, straight, like it's a lot.
It is
It's a lot.
But that's part of the competition. You know that
yeah.
going in. It's not like you're surprised
Yeah.
by any of this. Like
You're-
you know it's going to happen.
You're presenting your presence
Yeah,
and your
totally.
confidence.
Totally. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
Now, how did you do?
Well, very well.
Yeah. Okay.
I won first true novice,
That's
first novice, first class B overall, and second overall for the whole competition.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It was an amazing, amazing experience. I think what I brought that I wasn't expecting or that the judges weren't expecting was my stage presence, because I was very small to be a wellness competitor, but I hopped up and I was just like, cool. Smile was like everywhere. I obviously knew I wasn't going to get first, but I didn't care. I was like, I'm here. That was...
Well, I think that confidence goes a long way.
Yeah, it was
huge.
fun.
That's
It was
cool.
so fun with an exclamation point. It was amazing.
So I'm going to go right into that.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached a lot of athletes, and I've been around this for many, many years, couple decades, and I've seen a lot of people that did not come off of stage off of what you did, close to what you did,
Yeah.
figure or bikini or whatnot, and had the same thing. They
Yeah.
did the prep, and then they never wanted to do it again. What makes you want to go through this again?
I know I can do better. What I have dealt with...
That's that you against you thing again.
It is a you again. It is a me versus me thing.
Yep.
What I've dealt with in my off season is a little bit of imbalance. I was on a 31-week strict diet during my 21st birthday, during all these things that were happening, a move, and just, I didn't care. I was like, I was on a vacation and I was with my friend's parents doing all my meal prep with them, and I'm like, sorry, I'm not having the 4th of July food. I had to deny so many things, but I was like, this is for me.
Yeah.
Got a lot of judgment for it. But
We should do a podcast just talk about that.
Yeah.
But,
Oh,
we'll
I'll
skip
be back.
over that part and keep
I'll
going.
be back.
Yeah.
But just the fact of being able that I could say no and I can have self-control and self-discipline for such a long time put me into a little bit of my off season of not having that balance, where I was like, all right, cool. It's Christmas time. It's Thanksgiving time. Let's just kind of have fun with this. And things went rampant, but finding a good balance. Also, with doing a show, you do lose your menstrual cycle automatically just with the low body fat. So you go into it knowing that your body is going to physically have an imbalance. And that, I know that I can bounce back from that because I was able to get myself on stage. So if I can step on stage and if I can find balance again, I know I can do that whole process over and over again.
Yeah.
Will I compete for the rest of my life? No. Do I have a goal to get my pro card? Maybe. I want to do a Spartan. I want to do a half. I want to do a marathon.
I was going to say, it sounds like you
Yeah.
will compete for the rest of your life, but you
Yeah.
very much enjoy challenging yourself in different things.
We are so able-bodied. We are
Yeah.
so able. It's crazy that not a lot of people know that.
There's so many cool things though that you said about the
Thank you.
discipline of it, and I adore that. I love that
Thank you.
part. I think people talk about it, but I don't think they really understand what it takes.
Yeah.
When you said a 31 weeks, right?
1 week, yeah.
31 week diet. Now, there's a lot of things I have to say about that. Like that's amazing. So
Thank you.
tell me why so long? The average is roughly 12 to 16.
Yes.
So why did you double that?
So a prep, when people think of, okay, I'm doing a bodybuilding prep, I need to be cutting for X amount of weeks. When you're prepping for a show, that could mean you're bulking and you're preparing for the show. How are you going to prepare? You don't necessarily just have to lose weight to prepare for a show. You have to gain that size. So I was in a body recomposition phase for a little bit, from the time that the first week hit to roughly, I want to say like right after my birthday, so like around this time last year.
What are some of the features of a body recomp phase?
First off, I was under eating.
Before that or
Before
during
this,
that?
I didn't
Okay,
know.
got it.
I didn't know what correct nutrition looked like. I needed a coach. Like I needed guidance. I actually was on a mission trip in Belize, and while I was in the airport, I contacted like 5 coaches, and I was like, I get back to the States tomorrow. I'd love to set up a meeting with you, like just to talk about this. That Friday morning, I met with a couple coaches, and then that Monday I started, and the coach that I was with, he was like, with what you gave me as an outline of what you're eating, he was like, it's gonna feel like you're stuffing your face when you start on Monday. I was like, all right, cool, like, let's get to it.
Yeah.
Monday, I thought I was gonna throw up just based on a maintenance diet. Like, we needed to start off on just following everything to a T. That's still preparing for a show. You have a mindset of reaching that explicit goal that has a timeline.
Yeah.
So yeah, for that first week, I was, oh wow, I did not feel good.
And then
but
you
after,
get a little more used to it.
Yeah, after I was like, wow, I feel great. I'm so energized. I'm getting amazing sleep. Like I could do this forever. Like it was second nature at that point.
And how long did that last where you were in an abundance of calories? And it wasn't abundance, right?
That wasn't even an abundance. I was never in.
So that was more maintenance.
Yeah, that was more maintenance.
Got it. What true maintenance was for you?
Yeah, I did a slight bulk for a couple weeks just to kind of pack on a little bit more size on my legs. But it was more so like I stayed roughly around the same weight for a while. Okay. But my body looked completely different after like 5 months. Like, was the introduction more consistency, or was the introduction more protein or more fat, or was it all of it? It was all of it. Got it. All of it. Like I wasn't drinking enough water. I just thought, oh yeah, like I'm thirsty, cool. I was just doing it intuitively, which is not a problem, but you can get a lot of results that way. I wasn't reading my body correctly. Like I was very intuitively with consistency can be a lot of results. Yes. But then if you add in that other component where there's the education and it's truly what you need, it's exponential growth. Yes. Growth may not be there. You could cut. Yeah. It might not be the right word. Recomposition. Yeah, there you go. Whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was a time. Okay, so you did recomp for how long? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Roughly like, I want to say maybe 12. Okay, that's a long time. Yeah, and then it was just kind of bulking after that? A little bit. Okay, like, so a couple weeks? He knew more of the timeline than I did. It was, respectfully, I switched coaches just due to lack of communication. But yeah, from what I can understand, it was body recomp for about 12 weeks up until midway through May. And then from midway through May to about midway through June, that was kind of like, all right, let's go in a little bit of a surplus. Okay. And then beginning of July-ish hit. 10 weeks? Yeah. And that's where you're trying to lean out? Yeah. Essentially, yeah. So how did it change to leaning out? So you had that abundance of food where everybody feels the best in the world, and then you would theoretically have had less food. Yeah. How did you feel? I felt good. Yeah? Yeah, okay. Like he did it in a very effective way where he leaned off kind of periodically, depending maybe if it was that like, maybe we stayed there for a week, or if he would check in with me every day to be like, are you hungry? What times of the day are you hungry? What time are you going to bed? It really played a part into how long my periods were of like, were you standing at work? Were you doing fasted cardio this day? So many things that I didn't even realize played a part into it. Yeah, that's a smart coach. It was intense. That's a smart coach. And that's a lot of you having to be aware, but also it keeps your mind, instead of having to think about maybe what you're not getting or being deprived, you were giving up birthdays, holidays during that time. I wouldn't see it as giving up. Okay. How would you see it? Just a different perspective. I was still able to be there. It has nothing to do. A lot of people aren't going to be able to understand any of what you just said. I was able to go. I was in college with 5 of my roommates. We were all in the same sorority. We all visited one of my best friends, Gracie, and we're all at the beach. It's beach week. Okay. And they're like, cool. Like we're gonna drink. We're gonna like do all this. Like we're gonna have a cookout. And I'm like, where's the nearest gym and where is like Kroger or something? And they were like, you're going to work out while you're here? I got a week gym membership, and I drove 12 hours to Delaware just so that I could have my car, so that I could go to the gym at 6 in the morning before we all went to the beach. I would meal prep, and like before their parents got up, like brought my scale and everything. I was eating on the road. It was, some would say extra, but I was like, no, I'm doing this. Like, I don't care. So to me, that sounds totally normal. Yeah, thank you. It is
totally
normal.
Yeah, I feel like that's totally
Yeah.
normal, and I would totally respect that. But like I said, I believe there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of people that if they're not in this environment, they're going to be like, yeah, that's weird. But you
Weird.
just had a goal that maybe they'd never seen like that before.
Yeah.
If you had to study for a test, a lot of people would understand. You're like, hey, man, I'm clocking out of this. I'm not going to do this. And they're like, yeah, totally. But all of a sudden, if you eat broccoli when everybody else is drinking a beer, they're going to be like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting situation. How do you deal with that noise constantly coming at you?
One bite won't kill you. One shot won't kill you. Oh, you're just dramatic. Oh, do you know how many macros are in that? Do you know how many calories are there right now? The amount of times that I heard that every Friday, I would still go out. Like, I would still go out with my friends. Oh, can I just grab a water or a Diet Coke? And then at one point, I had to cut out the Diet Cokes. Oh, that was horrible. But
It's like giving up gum.
it
It's
was
like the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
But it just became like oh yeah, Brooke's not drinking. Oh, yep, nope, not for Brooke. Nope. Do you need a menu?
So
no, I'm
you
okay.
had to prove
It was
by consistency
Yeah.
that like this isn't just a phase
No,
I'm gonna
yeah.
do for a day.
So many people thought it was just. They're like, you're gonna cheat at one point. Nope.
So then I almost get that. I almost
Yeah.
understand that people are like, you're just doing a phase because you've changed or you've adjusted.
Yeah.
But after you put skin in the game for long enough, then they were like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
man, just cool.
Well, because from their perspective, I just got back from my first mission trip. Yeah, Monday after you guys just all went on spring break to the beach and I went on a mission trip, I'm starting this bodybuilding prep. And they're like, no, she's not.
Yeah. How do you recommend somebody who's going to try to start after hearing this? They're going to do what you did. They've never done it before. How do you recommend that they push into that to where they can say no?
Take out all environmental factors. Like, take out what you can't control.
Okay, explain that to me.
At the end of the day, what is your end goal? Maybe to step on stage, yeah, but like, what's your end goal within your heart, soul, mind, and how bad do you want it? Because you have to want it. Discipline is not fun. Like, it's not. I can confidently say that. I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. to do, and I'm getting loud. I didn't want to get up at 5 a.m. to do fasted cardio before I had to go to work and then come back here. I would spend hours. This was like summer camp for me. I would spend every day at Armor. I would be doing like headstands outside. Like, it was a form of therapy though, like I said.
Yeah.
And it was more of an understanding that I had to, going back to caring about what other people thought of me and other people's perception of, oh, she's just putting herself on a pedestal. Oh, she's better than us. Yeah, like, no, I'm not better than you. I just have a different goal.
Yeah.
But how does that set aside, not set aside, but how does that set us aside, not me above? How does that put us apart? How can I show you this perspective? Or how can you show me what you're thinking about this? Can you be curious, or are you stuck in that judgmental mindset? Never be judgmental. Please just be curious.
That's a good word.
And
so you're telling the athlete who may want to do something that you do, be curious about what the other person's doing instead of being judgmental about what they're doing?
I would say be aware that they're going to be judgmental because they're lacking the curiosity. They don't know what they don't know.
So if you could maybe not educate them in a way that's condescending, but maybe through your example like you
Yes,
did. You
lead
just
by
kept
example.
doing the thing.
Lead
and
by
then
example.
eventually they were like, hey man, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
How many, so let's talk about the last 10 weeks. That's usually the most profound and the most difficult for people.
Yeah.
How many meals, I don't think it's really beneficial to talk about necessarily the macros because it's going to be very different per person,
Yeah.
but how many meals would you generally eat in a day?
That's funny because my coach did it very differently. I had many small meals all throughout the day. I was eating every 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
Because
Did
I
you
needed
enjoy
to,
that?
I did.
Okay.
I needed to be in an like muscle growth, or I needed to be in a recovery phase at all times. So I
Okay.
could never be depleted and never feeling
What would
gross.
a meal look like? Like if you're eating that many meals, that's
I was eating-
7 meals a day? something
I
like
know
that?
I was eating like 6 egg whites, 6 egg whites, 2 eggs, and that was one meal.
Okay.
I would have that with I would be munching on carrots all the time if I needed to just have like that oral fixation of
totally.
chewing.
100%.
And I was always chewing gum.
100%.
I would have
100%.
go-to meal, ground beef, ground bison, honey, sweet potato, and green beans. Had that every day before I lifted.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah,
first
that
off.
was
And
my-
did you say it's a go-to meal? Really,
Still,
I've been saying that for
every
forever.
day.
I love that.
Yeah,
You gotta have a
so
go-to
good,
meal. Yep,
so good.
100%.
Chicken
Now,
and rice.
Would Monday look like Tuesday? Look like Wednesday for the most part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
every
so roughly
day.
the same foods. Doesn't necessarily mean you ate the exact same meal at each and
no.
every meal, but you had like meal number 1 was probably the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had roughly estimating 8-ish meals a day, but meals to
They're
me
small.
could look like snacks to someone else.
Yeah, they were small.
So, but it depended on, okay, when are you working out that day? Your pre-workout meal is meal 4, but if you're working out in the morning, then meal 4 becomes
Sure,
meal 1,
yep.
vice versa.
Now, you are a wellness athlete training for that specifically. So, well, we don't need to talk about necessarily the macro breakdown. Do you know about how many calories you were getting roughly?
Roughly, that was where the miscommunication was with my coach.
Okay.
Hence why I switched.
Got it.
Respectfully, but I would say like on under 2,000. I want to say my lowest was maybe like 1,600. I want
pretty
to
low.
say,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty low.
1,600.
And you probably didn't stay there for a really long time.
No.
Okay.
No.
Got it.
But also I was doing about an hour and a half of cardio every day.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So your lowest that went in a descending pattern over time after it started at roughly 10 weeks out got to 1,600 calories.
Roughly.
Okay, roughly around
Yeah,
1,600.
roughly.
So now you did, how many times did you train in a week?
6.
6 times in a week.
6 times in a week. Yeah.
Now that includes everything. Okay, so is that cardio and
No.
weights? Okay,
No,
so
no,
now how
no.
many times did you train if you include cardio and weights? Is it 2 a days where there would be 12 sessions now?
Roughly. It would be about like 10 to 12 sessions depending on how it was
Sure.
looking.
Okay.
So he would pull back on cardio sessions.
You're starting to get flat and you look a little scrawny,
and
and
he'd
then
be
we
like,
gotta, okay.
he wanted me to be very conditioned and very lean about like 2 weeks out so I could pull back on cardio.
Sure,
I was able
very
to pull
smart.
back on cardio the last 2-ish weeks, like prep or peak week.
That's great.
Yeah, peak week I was good. Like
Yeah,
I was
that's great.
fine. The hardest part was roughly 4 weeks out. Every time that I got to the end of the week around like Friday, Saturday, when I had hit my leg days on Saturday, 4 weeks out and 3 weeks out, oh gosh, I was a mess. Like I was like, this is so hard. Like this is, wow, I'm in pain. Like physical, my soul is in pain right now.
Yeah.
But not bad pain. It was just, you have to be put here in order to understand what this is going to feel like at the end of the day. So it wasn't I was self-harming or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, bodybuilding is, you're depriving yourself of food.
100%.
You get to a very low body fat percentage that you're not supposed to sit at for a very long time. So I always kept that in the back of my mind, but it was a mental fatigue. It was a mental fatigue
huge.
more than anything. Like, cool, I could be in a cut. I could be hungry. It's okay. I could do it hungry. But when I'm doing it mentally tired and mentally drained, like that's where.
To be clear, too, the next time you do it, it does feel better, and you get a
Yeah.
little bit more used to it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the next time you get a little bit more used to it. So there is that, and that first time it's kind of like you're.
Never done it before.
Yeah, it's a
I
whole
don't know what
different
to
ballgame.
expect.
Yeah. What did you have to tell yourself? Is it just were you constantly like, "There's the horizon. That's where I'm going"?
Yeah, like I knew. I don't want to say this to sound egotistical or cocky, but I knew I was gonna win.
Yeah.
Like I knew I was gonna walk away with like some sort of first place.
Okay.
Even if I did true novice first place, like I would have been happy. But I knew in my heart, like I was like, no, like I have to prove this to myself. Like I'm not saying that to people that I know I'm gonna get first, but like in my heart, I was like, no, I'm not walking away with anything less than that. So.
Again, that confidence, I think.
Yeah,
just
like
serves
I
you
was
so
like,
well.
I just need to, I need to do it. If I want to be a young lady, but like if I want to be a woman of my word, I need to do it.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words, so here we are.
Okay, so you would actually lift six
Six
days?
times a week, yeah.
Okay, and
That's with 3 leg days, and 3 upper body days, but depending on like if I had to hit, I would do touch-ups. So like I would have to hit shoulders on like a leg day sometimes, depending on what was going on.
Yeah. So as you started to lean out and you start to see things, you may have to work one area more than another,
Yeah.
dedicate time to this thing more than another. Okay, got it. We could probably do a whole other podcast on how to look at yourself and say what you need and what these things need to look like. Now your cardio would adjust, and then did it increase? Did you start out at 20 minutes and then go to an hour? Like, how did that work?
My cardio went from, I think, 4 times a week for 20 minutes on the stair stepper.
Is this roughly zone 2?
Say that again?
Is this? Did you zone it out? Was this an intense cardio, or was
this was low intensity cardio.
So you're trying to primarily use fat to be able to fuel this cardio session. This
Correct.
isn't trying to use just glucose and pound through it.
Correct.
This doesn't look like the most intense CrossFit workout. This looks like I really want to burn some fat.
This is just
it's kind of low and
you're
slow.
so consistent, and you just you're bored. You're really bored. I did a lot of people watching. Did a lot of music. Exploration, which was so fun. That was a big part of how I was able to have more visualization of all of this.
Okay.
I pictured myself on stage every time I was on the stair stepper. Every time I listened to music, I was on stage.
Okay.
So music and I came really, really close. But I grew up within music, so it was just a rekindling of a relationship for me. And I was just able to kind of tap into a whole different mental that I've wanted to find like my whole life. And it was just a different, and I'll find more as I grow, but it was almost as if I knew that I had this in me, but I needed to just uncover it. Needed to pull back the curtain.
Would you say that that's a lot of people are there? Like they got it. They just really have to keep working at it to find it. It's already there.
Yeah.
What
In
is
a
your
lot of
biggest
ways.
lesson that you learned from this first competition?
You're more than able. You're way more than able than you think. And that sounds so borderline baseline. But if you can truly understand that, that's one thing. But if you can believe that, you're there. Cool. I'll watch you from here.
Brooke, thanks for your time. That was awesome.
That was cool.